have Jennifer on here today to help us. She loves teaching. That's what she wants to do. And if you were on your Sunday Zoom meeting, to Kenny's point, just some great stuff that she added, and the way that she sees films and plays that can help us get better. The clips we're going to go over are going to be, we're going to try to chop it into two. First is traveling, which is something that we definitely need to be more consistent at the high school level for sure. And then we're going to try to get into maybe the second half, some atypical plays, some unsportsmanlike things where we can do better with those conflicts that occur in our games. So we'll get started right away. Jennifer, if you want to add anything, you can. If not, I'll just jump right into the clips.
No, let's get started. I'll just tell you right now, obviously, most of the clips I pulled out are clips from games that I was involved in, and I don't do that because I want y'all to look at games that I am officiating in, but probably mostly because they're games that I made mistakes in. They're games that I learned from, or plays that I learned from. So please don't feel like you can't point out the mistake that I made in a play, or that our crew made in a play, because that's what we're all here for anyway. And I will tell you, we're gonna start with traveling, Mark. That's what we're gonna start with. I told Mark this when we talked. I think traveling is one of the hardest calls that we have in today's game. Players keep getting faster, and we have to make split decisions on plays quickly. And I miss travels all the time. And it's one of those things when you got to go back and rewind a play 3 and 4 times to see if you missed a travel. You're just damned if you do and damned if you don't sometimes. So the more times you can look at those types of plays, makes it easier, when you go back out onto the floor and you're like, oh, I've seen that kind of move before, and it makes it easier. So I just think that, I know at the high school level, it can be hard sometimes to get plays or get clips or watch film of players that you're going to be officiating. But I think, the higher up you go, and the more you go moving up levels, if you can get clips of the players that you're going to be or officiating, it'll make it a lot easier for you to make those quick split decisions on the floor as far as traveling is concerned. So let's go for it. Let's see what we got.
Can I ask a quick question, Jen?
Yeah.
So do you do anything to help slow the game down for you? Is there anything that you do to help slow it down?
When it comes to those types of plays, traveling, a lot of the block charge plays, it's a lot of self-talk. When that pivot foot goes down, it's left foot's pivot, left foot's pivot, left foot's pivot. So when that foot, comes back up and goes back down, I know that I got to travel. So that self-talk helps game rolling on travels, but through a lot of things. But that's the number one thing that helps me. A long time ago, somebody taught me with a black and a white shoe. I don't know if anybody's ever done that before out on a court with you, but that really helped me with that, finding that pivot foot. So if you ever have a chance to kind of do that, you can try to do that. But when you're watching film and you're rewinding things, find that gather. And then when you find that gather, find that first pivot foot, and that will help. So, because it's so fast when you're watching it live. All right, let's hit it, Mark.
Okay. There we go. Let me get out of this. Okay. All right, we'll go twice live. Hopefully it doesn't glitch too much, and then I'll get in slow-mo, and then you, Jen, just let me know what you need from me.
And as with everything, I think one of the things you always are looking at with any sort of film is everyone's positioning, right? Whose primary area of coverage is it? Whose primary call is the play going to be? So we got a play right here where you got whose primary is the ball handler dribbler right now?
Trail.
Okay, Trail has the primary, right? So Trail's going to take this play going right to the basket. She's going to beat her primary defender, Go ahead and advance it, Mark. And then she makes the spin, right? So for these types of spin move plays, what I've always been taught is when they spin, if a player spins away from me, I stay away. Okay, so if I'm the trail and that's my primary ball handler and she spins away from me, the first thing, again, we go back to when we said about self-talk. Spins away, stay away is what I say in my head, because I a lot of times I just don't know where that gather happens, what happens with that ball. If I cannot see ball, I can't see ball, I don't really know exactly what's happening with that ball. So now who has probably the best look at this play?
Center.
See.
The center's got a real good look at this play, right?
Mhm.
So I got to think the center's got the best look at the ball and the feet. So, and in the middle of the paint. Lead, it's in the paint, so the lead probably would have a pretty decent look, but what kind of look does the lead have coming up through the defender?
Closed.
Got a closed look, right? So gonna probably need to stay away from that. So whose primary call would we say this would be as far as a traveling violation?
Center.
Okay. Center, and even if a foul were to occur, correct?
Yes.
You got the backside defender, the help side defender, number 33, that's going to come back and help. And then you got the primary defender, who's at number 14 there. The center's got a pretty good wide open look at that. So, and he's got really good position. He holds, he freezes. But what do we miss?
That extra step at the end.
That extra step. She brings that. What is the pivot foot?
Right foot.
Right foot.
Okay.
Left foot.
Okay.
Left foot. Left
And
foot.
the left foot is the pivot foot, that backside foot, right? She pivots right off of that foot, gather there.
Yep.
The ball is in the right hand, correct? And the left foot is down. So now we have our spin move. Right foot goes down. If she goes straight up from there, we got nothing, correct?
Correct.
But when she decides she's got to step back, make that step back move to move back from the defender to get that best look, is when we have that travel.
Yeah.
So we missed that play. No calling correct. Any thoughts on that? Anybody think anything different?
Well, I have a question. This is Brad
Yep.
Ward.
Yeah, Brad.
You said you were I think you said of course, the trail was the primary official on this play to start with, but the player is spinning back towards the trail. So do you think the trail could not have seen that, or?
Yeah, the trail's got a pretty decent look, but once it spins away from the trail and they lose sight of the ball,
Okay.
again, once I lose sight of the ball, I have a very hard time making a very good call, or what I feel is an educated call on a play.
Okay.
And especially when I look up and I can see that my center is looking square at the play, I'm
Right.
probably not going to take a guess on something that I'm just not sure what might have happened with that ball on the other side of that player.
For some reason on my screen, I can't even see where the trail official is.
Well, that's my next question. What do we feel about the trail's position on this play?
Too deep.
Probably a little deep. Probably a little bit deep. Could have maybe been down a couple more steps, right? Look how we still haven't seen him in the screen yet, have we?
Yeah, I don't think he makes it into the screen. Let's see.
Yep. Still haven't seen him. So probably needs to be a little farther down into the play.
Mark, I got 2 points on the play that our guest mentioned.
Yeah.
And I appreciate you being here. Notice how, one, when you said if she'd went up on that initial spin, she would have been good.
Yeah.
And then second is trail basically is not connected to the play by being so far away. Even if they had a whistle, it would come from so far away, the believability would drop when it's sitting there in trail. Like you said, go away, stay away. So thank you.
Yeah. Good points. Okay, Mark,
It's a,
let's move.
it's a great clip because the spin move we definitely struggle with.
Well, and some of the things, and I don't know how many people are here tonight that were on the other night, but some of the things that were mentioned several times were, you know, good athletic moves. We want to not make calls on or take good athletic plays away, you know, and we hear that a lot. I'm not going to, you know, sit here and say we don't hear that, especially in the women's game. You know, we want things that look good, you know, in our game, especially offensively. But you know, if it's illegal, it's illegal.
Jen, I think the great point you make, and I know what frustrates me a lot of time, that I'm seeing that and I see a fumble and I have nothing, and yet that person that doesn't see the status of the ball puts a travel on that play, and there's nothing you can do as a partner to help.
Yeah, and you can't put air back in somebody's whistle. I mean, you just can't. So, but those are plays we can talk about. You know, those are really good locker room plays to talk about. Hey, you know, and what did you see on that play? Can you trust me a little bit? You know, I had a really good look at it. There's a reason I didn't put whistle on that. So those are good locker room plays.
Hey, Kenny, that's a great point. Knowing the status of the ball, whenever you blow the whistle for a violation, you need to know the status of the ball before adjudicating the play for a travel or a double dribble or whatever. So that's a great takeaway from it. If you don't know the status of the ball, then you can't really adjudicate whether somebody violated or not.
Yeah, very much so. Always know status of the ball before you put air in the whistle. I mean, that's just a given.
Jen, can you see this moving? For some reason, it's saying my screen is paused. Do you see this clip moving?
No.
Okay. All right. Let me go do something else. Hold on. Okay. Do you have the screen now, Jen?
Yep.
All right. Here we go. All right. We'll go twice and then slow mo if I need to. Here we go.
How's that working for everybody? It's real choppy on my end.
It was choppy.
Very choppy.
Yeah.
Was it worse than the first one? The first one was clearer?
I think the second
Yeah,
one
the first one was much better.
All right,
But the
let me do
slow
this.
mo that played was real good.
Okay. Let me go here.
Actually, mine is different. It looks better on this one.
Let me do this. Go desktop.
There it goes. That's better.
Okay. Yeah, it's everybody's connection. That's different.
Yeah, that's really good. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Good.
So again, we go back to, you know, the whole thing of we don't want to penalize good athletic moves and athletic plays. Okay. Well, you know, I'll be honest with you. At the time, never in my mind, now I'm the trail on this play, so I really didn't have the best look, but never did I think about a travel on this play. This now, Enrique Wonka, I could never say her name. She's just an athletic player, you know, and she would make moves on the floor that you would just go, wow. So throughout the game, you know, you just didn't really see many moves that were illegal by her. So after the game, I got a call from the supervisor that asked me, did you think about at, you know, around the 4-minute mark, a travel on Enrique? I was like, nothing's even sticking out. Doesn't stick out at all. And this game went into, obviously it was in overtime. So, and a big rivalry, Marquette's just right down the road from Notre Dame, and, they were going to be one of the better teams or whatever. So big rivalry. So, I went back and looked at it. I was like, holy crap, how did we miss that? I mean, she takes 3 steps. I mean, there is no doubt in my mind when you look at it. 1, 2, 3.
Yeah.
So what I would say, for us in that is we just lost focus, right? So the reason I put this in here is because of all 3 of us on this play really just trusted that she was just we were looking for the foul. We were not looking for a violation. So I put this in here not because I put it in here because we missed an obvious violation. So we have to not only referee defense, but we also need to referee offense. And I think sometimes, depending on game situations and depending on players, we don't always do that. And we get into games, or we're on TV, or you get a clip from somebody and they go, how in the world would anybody miss that? And I mean, I looked at it myself and I said, how in the world did we miss that? And when you get a call from the supervisor in a game that's 73-73 and she's making a drive to the basket and gets an easy layup like that, that's not a phone call you want to get, right?
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
On that play, because you mentioned athleticism and not penalizing athleticism a lot, did that play a role into the no call also, and also the point in the game, it being 73-73 at 4:42 in overtime?
Well, I can't tell you what my other 2 partners were thinking. Okay, so whose call is this?
C. C.
But who could have also had a whistle on this play?
Lead.
Lead. Are we in good position?
The lead's not yet. I think she's still closed out.
Where could she gotten a better position to be in?
If she was right at close down already.
Yeah, if she could have gotten to close down, that would have been a little bit of better position. And it's not because anyone on this crew is slow or got beat. I will tell you Marquette's fast, but it wasn't because anybody was out of position. I really, honest to goodness, think we were refereeing for a foul, and we didn't do our job on this play.
So you was anticipating?
We were anticipating a foul.
Or some type of contact.
Some type of foul contact, whether it was a charge or a block or a hit, but we were not ready for a violation.
I don't know if we could say lead had a good look at it because
missed this play.
Players in front of him. You know what I'm saying? To see if
right. I'm thinking that if we look at the positioning of the lead, if she would have gone more to a direct close down position, she might have been able to. Because when you play this all the way through, Mark, if you can play it straight through.
I think you're being, I think you're being tough on yourself, and I think you are. But in full speed, I mean, even us watching it for the 5th or 6th time, you have to be able to see exactly when she gets control of the ball, and then be able to see at the same time which foot is on the ground when she gets control, and that's the challenge here.
Yeah, do you have the replay of the?
I do. Yeah, I do.
That one.
Let me go to that one. That's the one right underneath. There it is. Take the sound off.
At that time it's easier to see it.
Yeah. And again, but so you say we might be being hard on ourselves, but that's how we get better.
Yeah, I know.
And that's how we know. Like, so the next time, I had Notre Dame 2 more times coming up. She wasn't going to get away with a move like that again. Every time she drove to the basket, I was ready for the 1-2. 1, 2, 3. So, and you can kind of joke around with some players or whatever. So, she knows, she knew she traveled. She was probably waiting for the whistle. So, I just put it in there just so that you can see, or just so that we remind ourselves that it isn't always just fouls that we need to be looking for, and obvious violations need to be called.
I think she realized she
That's
couldn't
pretty
finish with
obvious.
her left hand. Took the extra step because she could not finish with her left
Yeah.
hand at that point. And
Yeah.
like you said, I think she probably may have been anticipating the whistle. And I'd really like, because we have this in high school a lot, so I'd really like some other guys to jump in and, because we see this play a lot. They call it the Euro step, change step, or whatever you want to call it.
Okay.
So the PJs and the other folks, what's your inputs on this play?
Well, Jen, I have a question for you on this. Oh, go ahead. Someone go ahead. Whoever that was, go for it.
Like, I think that's a travel. You got to call it a travel. I mean, it's a violation.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter time. It doesn't matter athleticism. It doesn't matter that. They clearly took 3 steps. Like, that's a travel.
Agreed.
I
Jen,
think
go ahead, Mike.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I just think that in some of our games, the athleticism is not to this level that we're watching at right now. And I think we do miss this very often, but I think it would probably be easier for us to catch, because I don't think the athleticism is as good as this, as what we're looking at right now, in my opinion.
I don't know. I don't agree with that. I think we have some very athletic. I mean, the game is changing. I think Jen said that earlier. The kids are getting faster, and they're getting to. I mean, we've had kids out of Texas go to Notre Dame. We've had kids. So we're having those kids. We just have to, like Jen was talking about, we just have to be more aware that it's not only a foul that we're looking for. It's violations as well.
Kenny, and I think I'll add to that is, I think sometimes in the high school game, there's a gap between those that are very athletic and the not so athletic. So there can be a tendency to, when you see a play that you look at as a spectator of the game, as opposed to an official of the game, you get caught up in that great move, and it looked like a great move, and it didn't quite to you look as an illegal move, because the defender or defenders or the team wasn't up to that caliber. So there comes to be a little bit of bias, just because sometimes you're a fan, but the kids are graduating or moving up to that level to, there's a lot of great kids in the state of Texas and in San Antonio, at men and women, boys and girls. So it's I agree with you, Kenny. It's there. We just have to watch it. If it's illegal, it's illegal. Whether it looked athletic, and I think sometimes we use the Euro step, and having spent a lot of time in Europe, I think we use the Euro step as a default to get out of not calling something. But that was a good Euro step because the person went sideways. Well, if he took 3 steps to get sideways, that's not a legal maneuver in any, whether it's FIBA or high school or NCAA. So we use that sometimes. That was a good Euro step. 3 steps is not a good Euro step. So I just throw that out there.
Well, and I would say too, I'd say we also need to just be careful of, we're out there to do a job. We're not out there to be fans of the game. If we wanted to be a fan, we needed to pay for our ticket and go sit up in the bleachers. So, if you find yourself watching the game versus officiating the game, then you need to rethink why you're out there.
Agreed. Jen, I got one question for you, and we'll move on to the next one. So a few people have asked, you were the trail in this play, so let's just say that you did see that travel. Is this a time and that you come and get that it's an obvious travel, and it's 4 minutes left in the game and it's overtime? And these are things that we struggle with at the high school level, maybe at all levels, but I'm just strictly talking with our referees here in our chapter, that we may see it, but we don't want to go get it due to the time score and it's not in our primary. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, it clearly wasn't in my primary. And like I said, it didn't even jump out at me at the time, because when I got the call, I didn't even think about it. I would tell you, I'm not afraid to go get a play that is out of my primary. I would have let it determine what I was going to do with it, depending on where I was on the floor. I wasn't even in the frame yet. And so to me, that tells me I was a little too far away from that play. If I would have been close enough where I could have gotten to free throw line extended to come in and sell the fact that that was a travel, I would have come and gotten it.
Okay.
But so that was what, for me, what would determine whether I was going to come get that play or not, because it's got to be believable. I can't be at midcourt and come get a travel, and anyone in that place, including both coaches, believe me on that call, whether they know me or not.
Right.
Not really caring too much about what the fans really think. It's really the two coaches. So
okay, good feedback. Just wanted to ask that. Okay, let's get into clip 3. Let me share my screen. Okay, sorry. Okay.
Hey, Mark.
Yes.
I know you moved on, but James Young had a question. I think he put it in late on that last play. I don't know if you want to move on, but I didn't want to.
I can make it quick, Mark.
Go ahead.
That first of the first, like if she took a step and a dribble on the first of 3 steps, in other words, she took the dribble, her foot also stepped at the same time. Then she takes her second and third step to the basket. My question is that travel? Does that make sense?
It does. I mean, I would be your judgment on when you feel the dribble ends. I mean,
Right.
it's all your judgment then on
Right.
when does the dribble end, when does she gather and plan. You know, I can't really break it down too much for a what if, but those are the determining factors.
Okay.
That would be really close. So okay.
Probably.
Yeah.
But she covers a lot of ground for that one.
Yeah.
So.
Thanks. Appreciate it.
Yeah, but I love this play. Okay, so who's primary?
I would say center. That's my opinion.
Yep.
C.
Okay. So this is my play.
I would say C,
Okay.
yeah.
How do you feel positioning is?
Maybe a step down.
Yeah.
Yeah, right now you look like you're straight lined. Yeah.
Pretty good.
It's pretty solid for C.
Pretty good position.
Okay, so I say when you're determining where you were going to stand, okay, so where was she coming from? Okay, so right now I can see ball, right? I know she's going to where? To the basket, right? So provided that the white defender standing directly in front of me does not provide direct help, I feel pretty good about where I am. Now, if she takes another step down to double team, then I feel like, yes, I would agree. I need to really take another dive down to get a better angle at what's going to happen with the trap. But the fact that that defender does not engage for a double team and stays connected to her primary defender, I feel like I'm still going to be okay, because she's still got a pretty wide open look towards the lane if she decides to go straight towards the basket. And I still got a good look at the primary defender and the secondary defender that is, in the lane. So I got 3 defenders that I can keep in my viewpoint right where I'm at. So that's why I stayed where I was. And now again, what did I say at the top? Traveling is not my best call. So I'm just putting that out there again. So I am engaged in watching what?
Defense.
The defense. I'm watching the defense the entire time. I got 3 defenders that I'm focused on. Okay. Now we also have hand checking as a major, point of emphasis in our game. So that's another area. I'm making sure that my primary defender isn't putting her hands on the defense or on the offensive player. So I got lots of things going on in my head, right? So now she ends her dribble, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Which foot? Would you say this is her gather?
Her right foot.
Okay, so her right foot. She's ended her dribble now. So that means she can no longer put that ball back down on the floor. What can she do now? All she can do is either pass or shoot, correct?
She's just traveled.
So she's traveled now once. That's number 1, right?
Right there.
First travel, number 1. And then she's traveled again, number 2, right? So I missed 2 travels on this play. All in one play. So, but again, I also said at the beginning, curl away, stay away. She does spin away from me. So that is something that's going through my head, but I really don't have a whole lot of help from my trail. Where should my trail possibly be?
A little further down.
28 foot.
Yeah, 28-foot mark would give me a whole lot more help on this play. Could possibly get that travel. And I think even the lead could probably come up. He may not have the best look coming through all those players. But the trail definitely could be in a better position to help out on this play.
May I
I
add
missed
something?
2 travels. Yep, go ahead.
One thing that helps me on the spin move or drop step, whatever you want to call it, if they spin or drop step and come to a stop, then I think you have the right to call it travel because it is a plop plop. So my clue went on spins or drop steps. If they come to a stop, then more than likely you have the right to blow the whistle or a travel. And like you said, by her doing an up and under after that is the second travel. So my clue on these plays, if they come to a stop there and try to pivot and pass out or do something, I have the right to call a travel. What I tell myself on spins, when they come out of that spin, they either be shooting or passing or something. It can't come to a stop because in actuality, they've switched pivot feet. Thank you.
Any other thoughts?
I have a question, Jen. Go ahead, Kenny.
Well, I read a book on travel, and I think your point is really well taken, is that we have to be okay with the trail getting that travel. That's a tough travel to referee defense and to find the travel. So we have to have the help. And they said the furthest one away normally has the best look at the travel.
And I was just going to say that.
We pregame that a lot.
You just said you were picking up the defense, and that's exactly what you were supposed to do. We talked about it on Sunday. Finding that defender. So as soon as you pick up that defender, then your primary focus may not be on the offensive player as much. So Kenny, you're absolutely right. Is someone else having an understanding and trusting the system and knowing where the primary is and where your secondary is and where you can look at and what's sometimes not in your area, so you can look in an area. So you're absolutely right.
And I would agree with both of those statements. And we do pregame that a lot, especially when we talk about post play and travels that occur in the post. Where you're the lead and you're looking waist up, and you say all the time, if you see a travel, come and get it because I'm more than likely too close to it, right? I would say in this particular situation, and I agree, really the trail should be able to help on this travel, but I'm good enough to get this travel, especially 2 travels, y'all. Come on. I mean, this is just, a little bit over the top on this one. And I'm far enough away that I can pick up both primary defender and travels. So this was a double no call incorrect on my part, and it's just one of those, again, a lapse in mental focus.
Jen, I have a question on this.
Yeah.
So we've got some coaches on here, some varsity girls coaches on here. They join us every Tuesday, and we see this a lot more in the girls' game, the up and under. So I know that they probably have some questions on too. But here would be my question: is let's just say that her pivot foot is actually her left foot on this. So say she didn't gather the ball, but then when now she's gathered and she stepped into her 1-2 here, and her left foot is her pivot foot. Now do we have a travel on either one?
Okay, so if her left foot is her pivot foot right here, if that's her left foot is her pivot foot and she steps and under, then we do not have a travel.
Okay, just I agree. I just wanted to make sure on the same page, because I know some coaches here are going to ask that the up and under move they teach a lot, and because it looks somewhat funny when they step through and then they pick up their pivot foot. Like say this was their left foot, they step through with their right and then they shoot off that right. Well, it looks really awkward. That we are actually not very consistent. Now, I don't know, Coach Camacho, if you want to touch on that. I just wanted to open that up because we do see this a lot more in the girls' game here in high school.
And I just wanted to ask, so let's say that was her pivot foot, the left foot, and she steps through with her right. As long as she releases the ball before she steps down again, it's not a travel, correct?
Yes, as long as that left foot, if that was the play and that left foot stayed up in the air while she made that layup, it would not be a travel. And one of the things I always say, I mean, to both coaches on both sidelines, if a call is made as a travel, and they question it, it's one of those things where you're like, we'll talk about, because, for some people, it's about the way it looks. And if on the other end, if a coach is like, that's got to be a travel, it just looks horrible. Well, ugly isn't always a travel. You got to pick up that pivot foot and you just have to explain that, it was an up and under. She stepped through and she didn't put the pivot foot back down.
Right.
Hey, Mark, this is Glenn. Can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead, Glenn.
I think what Jen is saying is you got to understand when the gathering comes to place, and that will help you out on your travel call. So if we understand when the player gathers the ball, a lot of times we won't miss the travel.
Well, it's when the gather happens and when the dribble ends, then the gather. Right. They happen almost simultaneously. And then once you do that, where that first pivot foot is down. Now, if both feet are down at the same time, then it's either foot. So, if they do that jump stop and both feet land at the same time, as that gather and the dribble is ending at the same time, then they got a decision to make for you. Which one is it going to be? But that's where you have to understand the rule. And some people don't understand the rule, because if I jump in the air off of 1 foot and I don't land on 2, then it's not a pivot foot.
And I think that's where in high school we get called a lot for traveling, because we teach our kids to be like an airborne receiver, and they land on 2 feet at the same time. So any of the whatever foot could be a pivot foot. But sometimes we get called for that because they don't see that that they've landed both at the same time. And so then whatever foot they step through, and it shouldn't be a travel, right? As long
as they land both at the same time. And a lot of times they won't. They'll go boom, boom. It's
right.
It just depends on how, I hate to say, how athletic the student is.
Right.
When they land, they do land with both. And I don't ever split hairs. I mean, if it's, but if there's a definite one that lands first, then that's the pivot.
So you made mention, Jen, so there is no gather in the high school manual. Is there a gather in the women's mechanic manual? There's not in high school, but it is in the women's manual.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
We just had the completion of the dribble, the ending of the dribble.
Oh.
You're right.
Yeah, no, we have a gather.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's like if you start a shot, if it's then you don't even have to get your arm all the way up for a shot. As long as we determine that you have a gather, then we can give you 2 shots, because that's the start of your shot.
Can I add something about that, the left foot thing?
Mm-hmm.
I hope y'all don't mind. And exact 2 steps for.
I lost you. I lost his.
He's breaking up. We're gonna move on anyway, Jen. Any other questions on travels? Because we're gonna get into the second piece on this. Any other questions?
I do have a question, Mark.
Go ahead, Dwayne.
So, Jen, you had mentioned that, you know, if they land on 2 feet, we've always been told that you can't take that second step. You got to go straight up, pass, but you can't take a step forward once you've landed in a jump stop.
If I don't have a pivot foot, if I don't have a pivot foot and I land on 2, then I'm open. My pivot foot's open.
Hey, Jen, just to clarify, you're talking about prior to the dribbler start, prior to the player dribbling, right? When they receive the ball and they land on 2.
Yes.
Not after they start the dribble.
Yes. If I land on 2 feet with the ball, I can pivot off of either foot.
That's correct.
But even off the dribble, though, right? You can come off of a dribble,
yes,
on 2 feet, and then take a step. Yes?
If I'm dribbling the basketball, okay, y'all, if I'm dribbling the basketball and I end my dribble as I'm gathering and I go up, but if I go up off of 1 foot, then I end my dribble off of that foot, then that foot is my pivot foot. And I land on 2 feet, then all I can do is go up and shoot or pass.
That's correct.
Are you following me, Coach?
What if you...
No, listen. I'm
Okay.
dribbling, and I gather. If I go up off of 2 feet and I land on 2 feet, I don't have a pivot foot. But if I go up off of 1 foot, that's my pivot foot. It's all if you determine it, if you go off of 1 foot. If that 1 foot is on the ground when you've ended that dribble, that is your pivot foot. If I have 2 feet on the ground when I end my dribble, I don't have a pivot foot yet.
Right. So you do, let's say you do a pro hop into the middle of the key. You land on 2 feet. Can you take 1 step to the basket?
I can pivot. I can't step. Well, no, you're asking me if do I have both feet on the ground?
You land with both feet on the ground. Let's say you do a pro hop, okay? You land, the ball's in the air, you land with 2 feet on the ground at the same time.
Yes. You can still pivot. So I can take a step, but you have to keep a pivot foot on the ground.
Right. No, I understand that. So
you still have to keep a pivot foot on the ground.
No, okay.
Because you don't have a pivot foot if you catch the ball in the air and land with 2 feet on the ground. If you land with 1 foot, then that's your pivot foot.
Right, I get that.
Down for you, Daddy.
With Jen.
I think we're getting lost in minutia now. Go ahead, Bob.
Hey, I don't want to beat it in the ground, but I just want to clarify. So if I go off 1 foot and land with 2 feet, I can't do anything but shoot or pass. I can't step. I can't pivot. I can't do anything.
Correct. Yes.
However,
correct.
If I gather while in the air, nothing's around. I gather while in the air, and I land with 2 feet. Either one of those feet can be my pivot because I established an original pivot foot.
Correct.
Okay. Okay.
Correct.
Hey, Bob, and I think because if you go up and you go up off those 2 feet or off that 1 foot.
We're moving on. Let's go. We're moving on. We're going. Here we go. Jen, you good?
Yeah.
All right, let's get into atypicals. All right, we'll get in a few of these, and we'll go on. All right, here we go. All right.
Oh, this was a fun game. Okay, before I say anything, I want to know what everybody saw first.
and somebody
Hold on,
different,
hold
please.
on, White. Hold on, White. As soon as the ball she tried to take off for the ball.
Yeah. Right there.
Okay, so 32 White with a foul.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Another foul.
Now it looks like she just runs across the back of her. I can't see it on purpose. But then the bench, somebody comes off the bench for blue.
This is a really good play. I want to add something later, Jim, but what I see from you is something. But go ahead. Anybody else?
Who comes off the bench from blue?
I guess this one, but man, it's a toe.
All right, that's another thing we're going to talk about.
You can get it a little bit farther. I thought she was farther out.
Yeah, be careful with Bob.
Okay.
Oh, right there. Okay, that one. Okay, is that the one you're talking to, Bob? The one right here gets to the 3-point line.
By the 3-point line.
There you go. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
All right.
Okay. Go ahead, Jen.
Okay, so what we have is a personal foul. Okay, so we have the personal foul on this on the hold, and then 32 shoves her. It's a dead ball foul, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, this year it's an unsportsmanlike foul. Okay, so I think most of what Mark and I talked about in talking about these plays is, you know, this past, I don't know, you know, it seems like forever for us now, but especially in the last 2 or 3 years, we've been really talking about bench decorum and unsportsmanlike plays, right? That there's just no place for it in our game, but it just seems to keep escalating. And they're plays that you can't really practice. And you really can't get used to calling them until you're just in them. Like you can watch them and they seem like, does this seem like a hard play to call to anyone?
Nope.
It's pretty straightforward, right?
Yes.
Not too difficult, but as somebody said at the beginning, not really sure whether she really did too much to her at the end. Well, I think we have a replay, do we not, Mark? Of the
Yeah. Let me see if I do. 6A. Here. Yep. Sure do.
So not so much the first foul there, which was pretty obvious.
There. I'll do it slow-mo just so people can see the forearm.
But watch the forearm.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, again, game situation that you just need to be aware of. It's Florida State. Okay. They don't like each other. Now, it's not necessarily, it's not conference play, but it's in-state rivalry. And these two teams, I mean, whoever's going to win this game. So, and in the past several years, Florida State's gotten the better of Florida, which doesn't sit well with an SEC teams. So you have to be aware of that going into the game. And those, even if the score doesn't show it, the anxiety and the intensity of the players during these games is very high. And so any sort of little tiny things, you cannot let your guard down. Your antennas need to be up the entire game. So how would you adjudicate this type of play? If you have a personal foul, then you have an unsportsmanlike foul. And you can tell me according to your rules, if that's how you want to say it. I can tell you according to what the women's rules are, but
yeah, someone take it that hasn't talked yet, how we would do that in high school.
In high school, it's in order one. If not, you would then just shoot the unsportsmanlike, and then, well, I guess we're calling it we don't have unsportsmanlike, so dead ball technical. So it would be ball at the half up table.
Which basically the same thing as what we have, except they're in sportsmanlikes.
James, if you're in the 1-and-1, you shoot the 1-and-1 first, with the lane clear. Then you shoot the technical, and the ball will still be put in play at the half.
So we call it a 1-on-1, but we're shooting 2 shots.
2 shots. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. So, very similar to what we would do. Was that Becca? Was that you? Will you walk me through how you would first get together with how would you get to that determination?
Well, from what I was taught back in the day, on a play like that at the end, with something that's like high contact like that, I would get together with my closest partner, who I believe was the lead. Or were you in the lead?
I was the lead.
So then in the C,
or neutral.
Yeah, who was coming over to you, and talk out what I saw, and go through the steps with them to make sure that A, we're all on the same page, and B, to make sure that I'm correct in what happens, since, obviously adrenaline's running through that, and you want to just make sure that you've got everything. But of course, before anything like that, you stay with the player. You're making sure that there's nothing else going on.
Do we lose her, Mark? Or
Yeah, I'm losing the sound too.
Okay.
Well, I can hear.
So my point was that the good thing that I wanted to make sure that she said was, we stay with the players. We don't leave the players. Okay. You do get with your partners to talk through exactly what you have on the play. You're not automatically just going straight to the table, making calls to the table and telling everybody what you have without first confirming with everyone how we're adjudicating the play. Okay. Now, I would like to say that you also want to make sure you separate players. Okay. In a play like this, we're going to probably be talking for just, a little bit. So, blue, go to your bench, white, go to your bench. Again, we talked about, anxiety's high, we want to make sure we keep them separated so nothing else happens while we're maybe not so focused on what the players are actually doing. And we already talked about, somebody said, a couple of the blue players took a step onto the floor. So what I would have liked to have seen was the third official at least made his or her way towards the blue bench. I don't think anything needed to be done with those 2 players. They didn't come onto the floor to the point where they were participating in the activity or, actually did participate. They actually looked like they were just maybe talking a little bit or whatever. But at that point, things had already calmed down. But if they would have made themselves known, like, everybody just stay over here, so then that way they knew they were being watched, and then taking a quick glance down at White's bench to also make sure nobody had made their way towards midcourt from their side of things as well. So making sure all of that happened. And then once we got the players to their benches, then the third official could have listened into what we were deciding as the other 2 officials. And if they had anything else to add, rule-wise, if we were misadjudicating something, whatever, they could add it in. Because what I always say is, I may not have anything to add, but you're making a call in a game that I'm officiating. And in the end, it's a call that I'm basically making too. And if you're going to make a decision for my career, I want to have some input. Whether I say something or not, at least I can go thumbs up or thumbs down and give you some information if I need to. So I want to be able to tell that supervisor, yeah, I listened in and I thought they had everything right. And I don't want to be the one that says, yeah, I was standing on the other end of the court and I didn't feel like I was needed. That's certainly not a comment I want to be making. So, and then once we do that, we gather everybody together and we gather the coaches together, tell them what we have, if that's something that's needed. And in this case, we probably do, because they don't understand the whole unsportsmanlike and they're getting the ball back and who's shooting and whatever. So we do that very fast and then we move on.
Jen, I'm not sure if I heard you, but you would have sent them to the benches. Did you say that?
Yeah, I would have.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I want to know how you included the third person. Is that how?
Yeah, I would have. Yeah, once we know everyone is away from one another, then that third person has the ability to focus in on what we're saying.
Okay, thanks.
Jen,
I was
have a
right. I
question.
was not listening.
Yeah. Yeah.
So two parts to this. One, I see you have the first foul, right? So you have a closed fist. I see that, and then you give kind of a hand, like to your partner, like maybe I have this. I have more information. I'm not sure. I just wanted to ask you about that. And then two, do you like your partner coming in to give a technical foul because maybe it relieves some pressure, you getting back-to-back plays on that same player? You already got a personal foul, then you come out with a technical. Just your thoughts on that.
Well, yeah, I had the first. I wanted to make sure that he knew what I had was the first foul, that I wasn't just calling that foul. I felt like my whistle was a little bit late on that first foul. So what I was saying was, hey, hold on a minute, come here, gotcha. let's talk. So just so that we knew, we have two different things on this play. We're not refereeing the same thing. And yes, it makes things a lot easier that he comes in and he can say, I got the second one. I think that does make things a lot easier. Not that I would have had any problem calling the second one. I think the second one called itself. But it does kind of give us a little bit of balance on the floor.
Jen, you make a good point. We've had several plays in San Antonio that we've had where the person assumed they knew what we were doing and we didn't. And so I think that's a very good point you make, not to assume that they think they know what you got.
What's that old saying? Assuming makes an ass out of you and me. And it does more than that in basketball many more times over. And I've been the byproduct of that on several occasions. And so I just, I've asked some really stupid questions on the floor, just because, you learn by mistakes. You don't want to make them again. And so, I'll ask just the silliest of questions and they'll be like, yeah, why did you ask that? Well, just wanted to make sure, just clarifying, we don't want us to go down a path we don't need to. There's nothing wrong with that. And that's probably the product of experience because, as a younger official, what do? You shut your mouth and you go on down the floor because you just don't want to look stupid, right? Like you don't know the rule, you feel like they're going to think you don't know what you're doing, and that's not the case. All you got to say is, I just wanted to make sure we weren't going to make a mistake. It's not that I don't know the rule. I know the rule. I know the rule is we got 2 shots and the ball at midcourt, but I thought we said we were going to put it at the near spot. So I just wanted to make sure we were going to midcourt. That's it. So that's it.
I really like your point where you said about the third referee that may not have any information but wants to be a part of that. I think that's something that we can all take. Like, just to your point, it's in your game, you're the crew. If the signer would call somebody from that crew, well, all 3 of you want to know exactly what happened because he could call any single one of us that night. I think that's a really good takeaway for everybody on here. If you don't have any information but you have an atypical play, you still need to be involved in that conversation. Would you agree?
I agree totally because what if they're just calling you to verify that what the other 2 said?
Yeah.
They might be doing that. I hate to think that assigners would be playing everybody off of each other, but you know, they might be just verifying that the other two that is indeed what happened. Okay, so now you're verifying, you know, what your partners did. So you want to be there for them. You want to be a part of that crew.
Let's go one more, Jen. Is that okay? One more. You got time for one
Yeah.
more? I want you
Sure.
to pick it though. You pick your favorite one out of these
Oh,
eight typical ones.
gosh,
I'll go.
I remember.
I'll go through them. So I have this one.
Oh,
Do you
no,
see it?
yeah, I remember that. Yeah, probably not that
And
one.
then this one.
Oh, that's a no call. Okay.
And then this one.
No, not that one.
And then this one, the one with
Oh, that's a big. Oh, yeah, that's a big one. That was a big
Yeah.
old brawl.
You want to go with this one?
Yeah, we can go over that one. That's a big mess. All right, have fun with this one, y'all.
All the game. Send everyone
That
home.
was a friggin' catastrophe. I'm like, what shit? Everybody's behind me. Okay, first of all, I mean, you can't say this hasn't happened in everyone's game at some point, whether it's a middle school game, rec league game, high school, college. I mean, everybody wants to fight over the ball, right? I'm gonna show I'm stronger than you. I mean, I don't understand the whole concept of not letting go of the ball when the whistle blows. So, I don't even know where to start. What do you see that's good? Let's go with the positives first.
The league called jump ball. At least the league called jump ball quickly.
He did call.
Yeah, and they didn't, and they didn't panic and call a travel because it looked kind of funky to start. You know, so it was, you know, they didn't anticipate anything. They let the play finish.
Okay.
I would have liked to have seen Lead close down on the two girls that had the ball when he called the jump ball.
Okay. So make his presence known a little bit more?
Yeah, come in and say stop, 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 or whatever, instead of standing back. He didn't come in until, I think it was too late at that time.
Okay.
Well, even C just stayed back a little bit. I think it would have helped if he came in a little bit.
True statement.
And look at what I'm doing. We're going the other way. All right, come on. I'm just like, yeah. Oh shucks, we're not going the other way. Okay. I will tell you, just to give you a little bit of background. So one of the things when you're officiating is to know your partners, right? Know your partners as much as you can. Personalities, you know, tendencies, whatever. These two partners are two of the most laid back individuals you'll ever want to referee with, ever. Like, there is just no, like, we are going to be on a beach in the next 2 minutes. And I mean, they are so laid back. So I'm going to tell you, it just doesn't surprise me that they didn't either that you all said. So, but they're both really, really good guys. You know, both final championship referees. So, WNBA referees. So, but yes, I would agree. They could have made their presence a little bit known a little bit more. What else? Anything else?
Well, I don't think that anything unsportsmanlike really happened. Both players got pulled apart. I don't see why we just bring the ball on back in.
You don't think there's anything unsportsmanlike about that?
I got a lot going on. I got a lot.
A fist was thrown or something.
You back that up just a little bit, Mark?
Yeah.
1, 2.
And then we got a push.
Now, Jane, can you go to the monitor? I know in high school we can't. So We don't have a monitor. I was in high school, so talk us through kind of what your kind of conversation you're having.
So the good things that I see happen was they got in between the players. Now, I would again tell you, it depends on who you are, right? I'm going to tell you, if that's me, I'm probably not getting in between those girls. I'm probably going to get knocked out by that big girl if she decides she's going to take a swing. But you got Big Brian and Big Eric. I mean, both of them, you're not going to hurt them. They get in between them. So them being able to get in between those players probably helped us, right? Now, they also will tell you, and again, it's a feel and a respect for who you are as a referee, and that comes with experience, but they tell you not to touch players, okay?
That's what I was going to say.
And I'm not going to sit here and tell you they're wrong, because especially today, I mean, you got to be careful. But there's a difference between me grabbing a player than Mark grabbing a player. I mean, a women's player in a game like this. But again, I told you both of those referees have been around for years. Both of those coaches know them. They respect them. So them getting in between them and stopping a play like that is more respected than them putting their hands on a girl's arm. So it's a feel. So don't take what I'm saying as Jen said it's okay to grab a player. That is not what I'm saying. I'm just saying you have to understand your situation at the moment. And they felt at that time they could get in between them and stop the situation before it escalated. Now, I guarantee you, if they would have already been to the point where they were fisticuffs and going at, they would have just stepped back and let it go. They would not have tried to start pulling bodies off of each other. My situation at that point was I was the farthest person away. I'm responsible for benches, okay? My responsibility is to make sure, as much as I possibly can, to turn and remind myself I need to turn and keep everyone on both benches. That is my job. Eric and Brian have the 10 players on the floor. They can handle that, right? I need to do as much as I can to make sure I turn and say, stay on your bench. And we did a pretty good job of that. There was a couple that came off of one bench. I think it was the blue bench. But they didn't participate. So they stayed, they got about halfway and then went back. White had a couple players that took a couple steps out but didn't participate. So that was pretty good. But again, we know now we can go to the monitor to help us with that. But part of our problem with the monitor is exactly what happened on this video, is it pans directly in to the fight or to the actual situation. And sometimes we don't get to see the benches. So the only view that we get a lot is that direct panned in view. And so the only numbers we can see are those that are actually in that direct viewpoint. We're getting better with the monitor in that we're getting, 4 and 5 different angles. So we can get more views to see things. And, it's part of our table crew talk is saying, hey, if we have a situation, whoever's nearest to White's bench, just watch White's bench. If anybody comes off, write their numbers down. If you're nearest Blue's bench, I want you to just start writing down numbers from Blue. And if you can't see numbers, if they got warm-ups on, write down Blue ponytail holder, write down something that signifies who that person is if they come off the bench. That way, if they're participating, then we can figure out that was a person that was on the bench and not somebody that was in the game. But in this situation, we did a pretty good job of that. So by the time I got into the fray, I knew who was supposed to be there, who wasn't supposed to be there. And when you see the video, you can see me kind of directing traffic of, all right, let's get back. You need to get back here. You need to get back towards your bench. Just trying to get the people that weren't actually participants in the situation away from Brian and Eric so they could separate those that were actually causing problems from each other. That was my job at that point. You have to know where you are in the situation, what your job is, and you have to think quickly at that point. Anybody else have thoughts?
PJ, go ahead.
Yeah, hey, Jen, my question to you is, for the rest of the game, were your antennas up? I'm sure after this play, mainly because, on held balls, loose balls, rebounding, those kind of things is kind of when fights start.
Well, yeah. To be honest with you, whenever you referee St. John's, your antennas are up. Those are the kind of players that they have. So again, it's one of those things we talked about earlier of knowing who your player personnel are. We talked about that with travels. If you know you have a player that makes a certain kind of move, you want to watch for that move so that you can know whether it's a travel or not. It's the same kind of thing here. You got a player who just has a chip on their shoulder going into the games all the time. You want to do what you can do. And I'll be honest, I try to be a mother out on the floor. I always get accused of that, I talk to them on the free throw line. I try to, show them that we aren't the bad guys out there. We're out here to try to help you, we're out here to do a job, just like you're out here to do a job. And if you talk with us and you work with us, things will go a lot better. So, just little things, nothing coaching. I do not coach a player, but just little things like, how's it going? Did you have a good day today? Things going all right? Hey, work with me, stay with me. If you got a problem, bring it to me. Don't take it to the player, those kinds of things so that they know that we're approachable. So if they do have a player that's giving them fits, that's causing them a little bit of grief or whatever, and they think they're going to go off on them, then they can come to us and say, hey, can you watch 12, please? Absolutely, no problem. And in this game, there weren't any more problems after that, to be honest with you. That was the only one.
How did you end up adjudicating this?
We ended up having, this was a couple years ago, so I can't really remember what the exact rule was of how we did all the offsetting versus what we actually ended up shooting. I do remember we had two, whether they were unsportsmanlike technicals or whatever, on blue, and then the one on white. The two that got locked up initially, we called, and those were offsetting, but then the one blue that shoved, we ended up calling for a technical foul as well. But we didn't call anything on anyone else. We felt like everyone else was trying to help more than we're trying to hinder. So we left everyone else alone. And the people that came off the bench, again, we didn't have a good view of it. So we, by rule, we could have done technical fouls on them and offset them, but we didn't have a video of it to know.
Any other questions for Jen before we close things up?
Mark, there's a couple of them on the chat there. You might want
to. Yeah, I'm not going to get into that. We're good.
Thanks, Jen.
Jen, thank you so much for taking your time. We really appreciate it.
I appreciate you all having me very much, and I appreciate Becca reaching out, and it's good to see some other faces that I know, and Mark, is good to get to know you. I didn't realize that you were from actually in Texas. I thought you were actually in Virginia too, so that explains a little bit more of why I was confused about times, but you know, always willing to help where we can. I think that's something about officials, that we need to be willing to help each other as much as we can. So if there's anything, Becca always knows how to get a hold of me, and Mark
Hey,
does.
I'll be, if Roger still has his camp in June, I'll be back that way for it. So I'll see you.
Okay.
Guess around then.
Sounds good.
All right, Jen, thank you so much for your time. We really
Thank you
appreciate it.
for your time.
Take care. Thank you.
Thank
All
you.
right, guys. Y'all stay safe.
Thanks, Jim.